What does the older generation not understand about today's job market? It's much more competitive and much less rewarding. You don't owe the company you work for with extra unpaid hours or your loyalty and submissiveness, since you aren't rewarded for that anymore. At least certainly not like they used to. Loyalty isn't the name of the game anymore. Flexibility is. You get a better opportunity at another company? Take it. This is why job hopping is much more common now. Not because of entitled youths, just because loyalty just isn't effective anymore. That you can't just walk into a company and walk out with a job. My dad and his friend walked into a factory in the early 80s and both left with a job. My dad still works for the same company to this day. He can't understand why I'm finding it so hard to find work now. My dad thought the same thing. Then he retired from his 30-year job and went to look for work to keep himself busy. He later apologized. He really didn't think it was as bad as I told him it was until he started looking himself. The internet is a huge part of it. Seriously, walking in and asking to speak to a manager doesn't do crap. Hiring for most places is entirely done online, and going in person will usually result in them telling you go apply online. How much people have been taken out of the equation in job searches? A lot of these online application portals are automated. It's not a person reviewing your application first. It's an algorithm scanning your resume and cover letter for key terms and assessing your responses to any additional questions in the application. Tell the computer what it wants to hear, and you might get to the human review pile. But if you don't, it will reject you regardless of your qualifications. Which shoots me to tears no end. I don't know what the computer wants to hear, and the keywords that the computer wants to hear were fed to it by 52-year-old Karen in HR who doesn't understand the demands of specialist roles in the heavy industries, excluding swathes of appropriate candidates. The jobs young people are applying for are legitimate jobs. Older folks think if you don't work MF from 9-5 it's not a real job that you can use to support yourself and family. And also, even a job where you do work MF 9-5 isn't necessarily going to be enough to support yourself and your family. My dad was telling me how my friends must be really lazy if they haven't found Christmas break jobs. I tried to explain that we live in a college town area, near a big city, and that all the Christmas work, what little there is to begin with, why hire seasonal employees when you already have enough staff, is already taken by October by all the college kids who already live in the area. Not only that, but trying to get a job back home when you're cities or even states away is really hard. How do you show up for an interview if you're across the country? But he just didn't get it. Find a new job every 2 years. At one of my last jobs they hired a guy who lied on his resume and didn't know how to do anything design or civil related. He got terminated within a few months, and I found out he was hired on making a little less than double what I made. It honestly a freaking joke. Companies refuse to pay their existing employees a competitive wage, so they all just deal with the merry-go-round expenses of turnover and hiring new people exponentially more than just keeping their existing employees happy. I wish loyalty was a value. I think it makes a work environment cancer when you have to walk into your boss's office with an offer in hand to receive any meaningful competitive raise. It honestly a freaking joke. For real, I worked for a company that did the same thing. I worked there for 3 years, got my 2 friends and they got paid $2 more an hour than me right off the bat. Even though I had more experience and time there, they go more and the company got P when I found this out. That you will not hear from a rejection, almost ever, and it's super difficult to get an interview, whether you're in work or not. I've probably applied for a good couple hundred jobs in the past year or so. I received maybe 1 or 2 rejection emails, and only got 3 interviews, one of which ended up being door-to-door sales. I never got a courtesy the interview didn't work out because of, or you didn't get the position because. Not a single phone call or email. You'd think after all the hoops you jump through and applications you filled out you would get something. Nope. Really degrading. In my experience, the over 75 crowd frequently assumes any college degree will get you a great job. In addition, due to retirement, they are unaware of the current atmosphere of nasty competitive behavior, a lack of civility in the workplace, and employers not always giving appropriate compensation for expected duties. I have a PhD and I was employed on the temporary contract that was renewed every month. If someone offered me a year position, I would cry for joy at such extravagant stability. 1. A lot of the hiring process is done online, so the idea that you can just walk into an office and hand in a resume is outdated for many positions. 2. There are also a lot more people in the job market who are highly educated. Having a master's degree now is like having a bachelor's degree in the 1960s. If you want to stand out from other applicants, it's no longer enough just to have a college degree. 3. Switching jobs has become more common than ever before. Spending your whole career with a single company is no longer a realistic goal for many people. That a second round interview does not mean that you basically already got the job. My dad couldn't understand how competitive the job market is during college recruiting season. That 18-year-olds can't live off the types of jobs that are available to them. People keep asking me how long I'm going to let my 18-year-old live with me. They don't get that it's basically impossible for an 18-year-old to be on their own with a part-time minimum wage job. He helps with rent and bills, and honestly I know people living with their parents in their late 20s and they have good jobs, but housing and the cost of living are still out of reach, and it makes more sense for a lot of people. That entry-level jobs now require experience. I saw an ad for a local grocery store that required at least 1 year of produce experience. Entry-level jobs were entry-level jobs for the older generations. Now you have to have experience to get a job anywhere, which is a paradox. How can you get experience if every job requires experience? You need to have 10 years of experience in a field that's existed for 5. You're not competing with the people around you, you're competing with the entire world, who can push their resume online, get on a plane and take a better job. The pool of competition is massive and liquid. That it largely doesn't function like it did in their day. A lot of 50-somethings look down on 20-somethings because of how easy it is to get stuck. I know a guy in his 50s who's an engineer today. Never went to school or got any certs or degrees. He started as a team janitor for their firm and worked really hard every day. His work ethic was noticed and he eventually moved up and up and up in the company until he was an engineer. They taught him everything about the trade based on his work ethic and interest alone. That just simply doesn't happen today. People do that nowadays, and they might land in middle management working for the McDonald's Corporation. Maybe. I don't know. It seems that they work really hard in an entry-level job to get promotions that one day become a career world is over in this country. But none of the older folks really see that, and just tell you you're making excuses. Every generation says this crap about the one that came before it, but it really is a lot harder to get by today. In my experience, job hopping has been the only way to secure advancements. 5-7 years experience needed for an entry-level job. Your company does not care about you at all and you must switch jobs every few years to keep a decent wage. You cannot go and check in on your application, aka contact them about the job after submitting an application. Most places will mark you as a do not hire because of this, saying that it makes you impatient and desperate. Source: I've seen a couple of people who work in hiring say that this is a policy that they've been told to uphold, including my own supervisor. That wearing a suit doesn't automatically get you a job. The first job ever I applied for was for some carpet company. My mum wholeheartedly believed that if I gave the store manager my CV while looking smart it would impress him. I went in the place feeling stupid. The guy took my CV and said thanks. My mum asked how it went and I told her. She was baffled that I wasn't hired on the spot. That is so bizarrely out of touch. TLDR, I reviewed 1,000 resumes a month. After 1 year we had hired 10 people. Competition can be insane. I worked at a very successful game developer years ago. Applied at their GDC booth and noticed the 3 resume piles. And labeled of course. One was huge, which was the obvious no's. Second pile was the maybe at about 2/3 RD height of the no pile. The third was called back with about 10 resumes and a secret pile of the talk to now people. I got a red star put on mine and put into the secret pile. Was talked to in about 10 minutes. After 6 interviews, 4 Skype, 2 in person, over 9 months I was hired. Since I was one of the first studio artist hires, part of my job was to find other artists for the team. HQHR filtered out the obvious no resumes before they got to us, which was whittled down to 1,000/month. Roughly 50 resumes and portfolios per day to go through. After a year, we hired 10 people. Out of 12,000 resumes, 10 people. I know game dev is very competitive, but this was insane. Define older. I'm 35 and the job market freaking blows. I am 40 and the same. I have a management job with an underfunded and understaffed non-profit. I have job security because my agency is needed, but I don't have stability because they can't afford to give me a raise. I have a college degree but I'm literally making half of what my father made at my age, 25 years ago. They think it looks bad to change jobs too often. I've had 3 jobs in the past year. One was finishing up a temporary contract. One was awful and not as described, so I left, and my current job. I'm nearly 30 and have had a job since I was 16, starting part-time in retail for my teens. I've had a total of 10 jobs. My parents have had less than that combined over 40 odd years. Places either don't offer as many permanent contracts as they used to, or you quickly stagnate as development opportunities and salary increases are far and few between. To move up, I've had to change jobs. Not once within a team or department have I or any of my colleagues ever just been promoted or had an out of the ordinary OI increase. You've got to jump around these days. Your loyalty to a company or organization usually gets you jack crap, and generally I think anyone under 50 now, that is, those still working and not just counting the clock till retirement, gets it. I'm a librarian. This will probably get buried, but I help a lot of people older than me, 40s and 50s, apply for the jobs. Most of them are either newly unemployed because they worked at the same company for 20 or 30 years and were made redundant, or they worked blue-collar jobs which now require online applications. Here's what I've learned. These are generalizations only. My 61-year-old mum is just as good with computers as I am. A lot of older people don't have email addresses and aren't keen on making one just to apply for jobs. Sometimes they'll find a place hiring online and instead of doing the application will write down the address and show up in person, only to be told to do the online application. They don't understand basic internet jargon. They don't know what it means when the site asks them to upload their CV. Likewise, they don't know how to download their CV from their email to the computer. I can't tell you how often I see older people scanning paper CVs as JPEGs and sending them. They have terrible spelling and grammar. Their CVs, cover letters, and applications are horrendous. They're probably perfectly capable, but they can't write a complete sentence. They never check their email to see if they get a response. I guess the main thing is a lot of people in that age group haven't adjusted to how integral the internet is when applying for jobs. I've sat down with people and shown them what they've done wrong, and most of the time they get an interview for the next job they apply for. It's not rocket science, it's learning how the system works. Too much competition for starting jobs. In Portugal at least, having a degree is pretty easy and affordable, but competing with thousands, depending on the field of people with the same degree, is hard. My mom seems to think that I'll easily get a job right out of college with just a bachelor's degree because I'm extremely intelligent, so employers will just be begging for me. Like sis hasn't been job searching in probably 30 years and thinks that I, with a measly bachelor's, no connections, and no experience, will easily get a job and be able to move out right after graduation. The older generation has no idea how hard it is to even get a decent job at minimum wage, let alone in the professional market. This is a depressing read. The numbers have changed drastically and it's not really for the better. You used to apply in person, on the phone, through paper ads, etc. That meant at most you could apply for a few jobs a day, generally in your region. Now every job is posted online and you're expected to apply to every halfway reasonable job within your language, often even within any same language speaking countries. Now you're expected to apply to tens, often upwards of 100 positions a day with no real geographic preference. Every job gets hundreds to thousands of applicants. It's become a total mess and might as well be random. Even if your boss likes you and you're a great asset to the company, they can't do anything to recognize you because all the real power is held by some rich sociopath in another state or country, and you're as disposable and replaceable as anyone else. You got a low salary offer because women don't know how to negotiate. No dad, I got the low salary offer because widespread labor unions are dead. HR doesn't know jack crap about any of the positions they're hiring for and uses an outdated formula to calculate the compensation offer. The massive volume of competition from other debt-riddled college grads willing to take anything above $8 an hour in their field, and a leadership that just wants breathing human beings to fill in the slots regardless of competency. Although if they could figure out how to get the corpses in the morgue to follow AORN standards, I'm sure they'd go that route as well. They want us to work like we have a pension and loyalty to the company but pay us like we're the high school senior just saving up for prom by taking a weekend gig at Arby's. Your business runs on technology. The entire board and C-suite could probably freaking vanish for a week with no perceptible impact on the bottom line, but turning off the wrong server for 10 minutes could have a very noticeable impact. Think about that for a minute the next time you think technology is just a tool your business uses. Getting a good livable wage job isn't as easy as it used to be. I've got a lot of family members who graduated high school and got a job in the oil fields or automotive industry making what is now the equivalent of like $70K straight out of high school. They made more money and everything cost less. You could buy a brand new souped up muscle car in the 60s for the equivalent of a freaking Chevy Malibu today. My dad told me back in my day, 70s, $20 got you a full tank of gas and a nice date with a lady. Today it covers your neat bourbon and a glass of wine. Any job will not do. It can be far more valuable for an adult worker with experience to not do something like take a minimum wage job because it can hurt their efforts to find a higher paying job due to the time it can take to find a job. No one trains you for crap anymore. You should just have 2-5 years of experience somehow. The fact that money now is worth less than what it was before. Like yay grandpa, you made $3.50 an hour and managed to pay your mortgage off by the time you were 24 but you're still disregarding the fact that it'd be worth like $36.50 HR today, so shut your freaking face hole. LinkedIn profiles are almost essential, and people largely don't read your resume anymore, just the summary up top. I hate LinkedIn with a burning passion. That, for the most part, your parents or friends can't just get you a job that will lead to you being able to afford a house and car in 5-10 years. Baby boomers got incredibly lucky that their parents weren't lazy after World War II and handed them everything, but we got incredibly unlucky to have those people as our leaders today. They don't have a clue what it means to your average American and it hurts all of us. It wasn't exactly that boomers' parents were hard workers, though I'm sure most were. It's that the war had left most countries with depleted labor forces due to war losses and the destruction of much of their manufacturing infrastructure. This gave the US a period of time in which it faced little competition on the global market and the wealth rolled in. You can't just walk into a place and walk out with a job. A lot of places won't even take your resume. They'll tell you to go to their website and apply online. That in many parts of America, having a middle-class job no longer means can afford a home. Until they finally retire, there won't be any openings for us. The job market depends on turnover. Instead, 70-year-old teachers who haven't updated their curriculum since the fall of the Berlin Wall are still sitting on their tenure and wondering why no new 25-year-old teachers are getting into the profession. Well, that and prohibitively expensive degree requirements for teaching jobs that don't pay as lucratively as other professions, in addition to having to deal with misbehaving children you can't really do anything about. They have a poor understanding of spending power. In their minds, an above minimum wage job should give you some spending money. They think the poor are just dumb or lazy, and they don't understand how much more expensive it is to be young today than it was in 1975. Just because someone is younger than you doesn't mean they're below you. This is especially true when you're the new hire. I have so many women coming into my daycare thinking I have to listen to them because they are older. I'm 26, they are 40-50s. I said this the other day, but it's worth repeating because it's true and a lot of people don't really understand it. You can have a job and still not have a job. Way too many companies rely on temp work these days and they continuously cycle through different temp workers. I've been a temp worker since August 2017 and I've had steady work thanks to being a good worker. But I've reached the point where I want to stop being a temp worker and just work for a good company position that'll satisfy me with what I make do. You cannot get the job you want without the requirements they set. You cannot walk into anywhere and get the job. They have an online app for that. If you don't have the requirements for the job, your application will be batted down before a human even sees it. You can't just go to a place and ask for a job. My dad was the biggest pain in the butt with me getting a job because he'd constantly tell me to go out to insert some hiring place here and ask them for a job. I try to explain to him that's not how it works now, and it's all online. He still insisted I go job hunting by leaving the house and asking random places if they're hiring. Anytime I did anything close to that, they'd tell me to apply online. It was even worse when he got frustrated with me when I'd tell him a certain place he'd tell me to apply to wasn't hiring at all based on my online research. He thought I was using an excuse to just not get a job at all, when it was just hard to find places that were actually hiring and nearby. You have been spotted by the money pigeon. Comment gimme gimme and he will bless you with good fortune. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.